One of the most beautiful things about living in New York City is you can always find inspiration in everything. Most people assume that living in New York City means you have to stay in this small, tiny apartment, but I love to venture off to Queens and Brooklyn just to see the beautiful homes that you can also live in when living in New York City. So it's not all about cramped spaces and roommates. Sometimes it's about luxury or beyond Manhattan. I love walking through places like Midwood and see all the gorgeous mini mansions. It gives you hopes and aspiration to go out there and do what it takes to actually win. Seeing beautiful residential spaces that make you really want to pursue your dreams, goals, and aspiration all throughout New York City is one of a kind, top-notch, remarkable. This is an area where affluence from the normal New York City townhouse experience is just one in its own. You don't get the typical living situations. You get homes full of character and homes full of charm, something that you can expect in a different part of the US and maybe even abroad. You have quaint, quiet living outside of the hustle and bustle of Manhattan, which is the prime borough, which most people think about when they think of New York City. Homes with elaborate character, front yards and backyards, private garages, and everything in between. As someone who does furniture assembly in New York City, sometimes I get the glory and the opportunity to go inside of these beautiful residences. You have a private shed. Look at this, top to bottom, prime real estate. You get to go inside and build furniture inside of these beautiful homes. You get to see a different sort of side of how people live in New York City. One that encourages you to put your money where your mouth is. Just take a look at that beauty. An alternate experience of what it's like to live in New York City. That's a far cry out from the cramped living spaces of Manhattan. Homes after homes offering pure luxury. That right there is not a home, that's a school, but it just delivers the charm of New York City. I didn't grow up living in New York City, of course. I did grow up in Florida, where our homes did have front yard and backyards, where there was plenty of play areas for us to have fun in. Right on the facade, look at that, the brilliance of a mid-sized mansion, because if you add a couple of more houses onto that, or a couple of more compounds, you got a whole estate. And these type of homes are scattered all across Brooklyn and Queens. Just have a glimpse of that. You can see what it looks like to be a built out basement, the mezzanine of the house, all the way to the top floors. And the quietness of the streets really make it come to life. A whole wraparound facade. Then you have this one, a stark contrast right across the street. Sort of have the same design motif. A chunk of beautiful living right on the ends of Brooklyn. And I'm sure you get a different variety of people who can afford these elaborate homes. From the doctors to the lawyers, to the artists, the entertainers, to even some sports stars. But these are pure entrepreneurs in this area. I can just feel it in my bones. Homes after homes, guiding you. Something a little bit more modest. Something more massive. All glory, all aspirational, all things that make you want to go out in New York City and just kill it. And one thing is important to know about this community. It just goes on and on. All the way through here. On prime streets, you get established, beautiful homes just like this. Where most people would say or be stuck in a New York City apartment, these people get residential palaces. Palace Residential is the builder of this new home that's going to come up pretty soon, a work in progress. I just want to go across the street and see what's going to happen in probably a year or two from now, where this vacant lot will not be so vacant anymore. And just look at that, work in process, anticipated completion, fall 2025. We're way past that, but that's what it's intended to look like. It's utterly remarkable. You get the glitz and glamour side of New York City's Brooklyn. This is Midland, and this is a place where people have those big, large private estates. They have everything. They have the nannies and the cleaners. They have the credentialed jobs that we need. The entrepreneurs, again, the lawyers, the doctors, the dentists, everything in between. It's one of those parts of New York City that most people don't think about, because they think of that cramped apartment in which people live. They don't think about these large estates. They don't think about the luxuries outside of the Upper East Side and Tribeca and Chelsea, where the townhouse and the luxury apartment is king. But if you come out here in Midland, what's king is your own house. Even if you can't afford an estate like the ones that I just showed you, having your own separate house outside of an apartment building, you're already steps above. Because as someone who does live in an apartment, I'll tell you, if that apartment catches on fire, I lose my apartment. It can be someone else's unit that catches on fire, but my apartment might leave. In these areas where you have a long separate space away from someone's house, because your house is here and their house is over there, if their house catches on fire, which probably won't because they have staff, 24-hour staff, or at least 12-hour staff, they can nip that in the bud so it doesn't fall over to someone else's property and estate. But again, living in your own house, whether it be small or large, is a blessing in disguise, especially living in New York City. And I like to travel out to Midland to just get that approach. But I'm standing in front of you, although we are in an area where people do own those beautiful mini mansions as well as mid-sized mansions compared to, like, say, California or Florida. I'm going to point you across, because in the same area you will get the typical New York City apartments, and I just want you to take a look at that. Now that's typical New York City living. When people think of New York City, they think of apartment buildings, apartment on apartment, and this is just steps away from those massive mansions that I've showed you according to New York City standards. Like if you look here, those are houses that I just showed you, or similar houses to that I just showed you. And then you have the apartment buildings of New York City. But even though they're living in apartments for whatever reason, maybe because that's what they can afford or what they prefer, you still have a nice, quiet, quaint town and a beautiful school next to it. So when you are looking to raise a family in New York City, you have to come out to a place like Brooklyn or Queens, and even Staten Island. Staten Island is the outer borough that nobody wants to talk about, and Staten Island is the borough in which everybody gives hell or talk most crap about. But I'd rather raise a family in Staten Island than take that family to the Bronx.
teoría.